One of the things I think a lot about for myself and other people in some of the work that I try and do is this simple phrase we all use, or most of us use, kind of keeping it real, right? I'm keeping it real. I'm being honest. And it's such a dangerous phrase, I find. Anything that implies this idea of like, let me tell you the truth. And the reason I think it's such a dangerous phrase, the reason why I think it's so interesting is I think that oftentimes there's like two layers to it. There's the layer of what somebody tells me in that circumstance, right? What when they're keeping it real, they give me some information, they give me some truth, some insight, whatever it is, right? And them actually doing that is part of being honest, keeping it real, right? But I think what we most often miss is that prerequisite step. The way I phrased it before is like, to be honest with somebody else, you have to be honest with yourself first. So to keep it in the lingo we're using, to keep it real with somebody else, you got to keep it real with yourself first. And I think my working premise is that far more often than not, we are better at keeping it real with other people, but not keeping it real with ourselves. So we think we're telling the truth. We think we're giving some like deep insight or some honest reflection that we have, and it feels real. It feels like we are doing that. It feels like we're keeping it real. But if you haven't actually questioned or challenged it yourself, it's really not. And in many ways, that's the function that I want to play. I want to be that check that says, like, how do you know you're keeping it real? How do you know what you're saying right now? How do you know what you believe to be true is actually true? I believe you believe it right now. I believe in your mind in this moment, you think what you're telling me is true. But that's only a fragment of the whole thing. Like the much bigger, broader truth, if you will, is so much deeper than that. There's so much more to it. There's that piece of you identifying your blind spots ultimately, which is like by definition almost an impossible task. I'm sitting in a car right now. I'm looking through my mirror. There's a blind spot. I can't see that blind spot. I just can't. It's a blind spot to me. Unless I do something differently to get a different perspective, to force a perspective that allows me to shine light on it. If I don't do anything different, if I don't change any of the way in which I'm looking, I will never see what's in that blind spot. I'll never know what's there. And kind of by definition, then I can't say for sure that I'm keeping it real because I don't know what's sitting there. I don't know what else is going on in my mind. I don't know what else is going on in the world. I don't have the perspective to see those things. So I think my big point in that, or my big takeaway is, and in many ways, again, what I'm driving towards is getting people to realize that there's far more illusion in our worlds, in our minds. There's far more stories that we tell. Putting it bluntly, sometimes there's far more lies that we have, but we work or act as if they're not there. We work or act as if, listen, I keep it real. Like, I just tell people like it is, right? True. You may have that part of it, right? Some of us struggle even with that part of it, of telling people what we think the truth is. But for a lot of people, they got that covered. They can tell people what they think it is. The much harder, arguably much more important part is, can you actually tell yourself what you think it is? Have you actually done the work to understand what it actually is, what's there, what it means, what the other perspectives might be, the things you might be missing, the biases that might be clouding your ability to even think about it? All those things that ironically, or maybe sadly, lead us to believe we know, lead us to believe we're keeping it real. Those same biases that are at play that make us not actually know what's going on are the same ones that give us the confidence to think, I know exactly what's going on. I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I believe. I know exactly why I believe it. Of course you do, because those biases, those what I call flaws of the mind, they exist to make things simple. They exist for the exact reason of convincing your mind that, like, we got this, we understand it, we have our arms around it, we know what we're dealing with. That's what they're designed to do. So that confidence you feel, That confidence to say, I'm keeping it real right now, you have to question that. You have to. Because it doesn't mean it's definitely wrong. It doesn't mean you're definitely lying to yourself. But it means it's certainly possible. And how would you know? That's the question I so often ask. How would you know if that's one of these instances where you don't even realize that blind spot's there? You have no idea. How would you know? How could you know? Unless you've done some work, unless you've challenged it, unless you've had conversations with other people and truly listened to their perspective and their opinion on it, unless you've done the work in your own mind to be like, let me look at this a totally different way. All sorts of different things that we have to do. And that's what I want to bring more of to this world. I want, when people say, I'm keeping it real, or I'm being honest, or here's what I believe, I want them to have more confidence that they actually do believe that they actually are keeping it real. We'll never know for sure, right? Blind spots will always be there. Our minds just are too imperfect for us to ever know anything with absolute certainty. So that's the first game, right? Like, throw that out. But to have conviction, to have confidence, which we should have in this world, you have to earn that. There's a responsibility that comes with that. You have to do the work. And my hope is that this can push more people to do that work so they have more clarity, so they think more clearly. And when they speak on something, when they believe something with such conviction, they can have more confidence that they've done the work to be sure of it, that they've considered all the potential pitfalls or shadow sides or unexpected or unintended consequences or costs to it. They've thought through all of that.